and the shadows over street Johns were growing longer. Chapter 1. The Silent Witness. The call came in at 8. Megan Schaefer, a rising star at Wilkins Law, had vanished on her walk home. But she wasn't the only one the city had lost that morning. "Charlie, we've got a complication." Jesse Mills' voice crackled through the comms. Jesse was the team's heartbeat. The man who could find a needle in a digital haystack before Charlie could even finish his first cup of coffee. 1. Emma Johnson just reported her 12-year-old son, Brian, missing. He's on the autism spectrum. He was seen near the area where Megan was last spotted. Charlie felt the familiar tighten in his chest. A kidnapping was one thing, but a child caught in the crossfire? That changed the stakes. "Rex, let's go," Charlie commanded. The dog was already at the door of the SUV, his tail a steady beat against the frame. They arrived at the scene, a quiet residential street where the echoes of a struggle still lingered in the damp air. Emma Johnson stood on the sidewalk, her face a mask of controlled panic. She held a sketchbook to her chest as if it were a life preserver. "He doesn't speak much," Emma told Charlie, her voice trembling. "Brian, he perceives the world differently. He draws. Everything he sees, he remembers in perfect detail." Rex approached her slowly, his posture submissive and calm. He nudged her hand, a silent offer of comfort. Charlie watched as Emma's tension visibly ebbed. "Rex has a way with people," Charlie said softly. "Especially those who feel overwhelmed by the world. Let him help us find Brian." Sarah Trong arrived shortly after, her professional demeanor barely masking the concern in her eyes. "Charlie, the area is clean of physical struggle, but we found these," she said, holding up a pair of broken glasses. "They belong to Megan, and over there, near the storm drain, Rex was already there. He was sniffing a patch of concrete where a bright yellow chalk drawing of a man's face stared back at them. The detail was haunting the curve of the jaw, the coldness in the eyes. Brian drew this," Emma whispered. "He saw the man who took her." Chapter 2. The Whispers of Corruption. As the investigation unfolded, the romantic tension between Charlie and Sarah simmered beneath the surface of the procedural grind. They spent late nights in the precinct, the glow of computer monitors illuminating their tired faces. "You should get some sleep, Sarah," Charlie said, leaning against the doorframe of the lab. Sarah looked up from a chromatography report, a stray strand of dark hair falling over her eyes. "I can't. If Jamie Bregman, Megan's ex, really did this, he's left a paper trail a mile long. But something doesn't feel right, Charlie. The escrow accounts at the firm. Millions are missing. Jamie was the point man, but he doesn't have the temperament for a masterminded kidnapping." Charlie moved closer. The scent of her perfume, something floral but grounded, mixing with the sterile smell of the lab. "He's desperate. Suspended this morning. Student debts piling up. It's a classic motive." "Maybe," Sarah mused, her fingers brushing against Charlie's as she handed him a file. The contact sent a jolt through him, a reminder of the life they were trying to build outside the yellow tape. Or maybe he's the scapegoat. Their theories were cut short when a ransom note arrived via an anonymous burner app, $2 million. Unmarked bills. "The kidnapper is smart," Jesse noted, his fingers flying across the keys. "Using VPNs through Cyprus. He's mocking us, but they had an edge the kidnapper didn't account for. Rex." Charlie and Sarah took Rex back to the neighborhood where Brian had been found. The boy had finally returned home, but he was trapped in a shell of trauma. Rex, sensing the boy's distress, didn't bark or jump. He simply sat by Brian's feet, resting his heavy head on the boy's knee. Slowly, Brian reached out. His small hand sank into Rex's thick fur. The silence in the room was deafening until Brian picked up a pencil and began to draw again. He didn't draw the man this time. He drew a van, a very specific van with a dent in the rear bumper. "That's our lead," Charlie whispered, catching Sarah's eye. They shared a moment of triumph, a silent "we got this" that meant more than any spoken word. Chapter 3. The Chase and the Truth. The search for the van led them to a commercial laundry parking lot. But what they found wasn't a kidnapping victim. It was a corpse. Jamie Bregman lay slumped in the driver's seat, a single, professional stab wound to his chest. "He didn't do it," Sarah said, her voice heavy with regret as she knelt by the body. "He was the first victim. The killer used him to frame the whole thing." The investigation pivoted toward the law firm's upper management. Charlie devised a plan. A ransom drop that wasn't about the money, but about the scent. "We use synthetic scents," Sarah explained as she sprayed the duffel bag with a chemical, undetectable to humans, but like a beacon to a canine. "Rex will follow the trail, no matter where they take it." The drop was a chaotic mess of moving parts. A teenager, a pawn recruited through a gaming site, grabbed the bag and led them on a chase through the Forest Road Cemetery. But Rex was faster. He didn't just find the bag. He found the connection. The trail led them back to an abandoned machine shop. Charlie, Sarah, and Rex moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine. While the SWAT team surrounded the perimeter, Charlie and Rex breached the back. Inside, Megan Schaefer was bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. Todd stood over her, a gun in his hand, his professional facade completely shattered. "It was supposed to be simple," Todd screamed. "Jamie takes the fall, I take the money, and Megan just had to be the leverage." "It's over, Todd," Charlie said, his voice steady. Rex was at his side, a low growl vibrating in his chest, a warning that nature was about to reclaim its due. In a blur of motion, Todd aimed at Charlie. Rex didn't wait for a command. He launched himself, a streak of fur and fury. The gun went off, the bullet whizzing past Charlie's ear, but Rex had already neutralized the threat, his jaws locked onto Todd's arm. Charlie tackled Todd, cringing at the sound of the handcuffs clicking shut. Behind him, Sarah rushed to Megan, her hands gentle as she cut the ropes. As the sun began to peek through the clouds, illuminating the harbor, Charlie stood with Rex. Sarah walked over, her face smudged with dust, but her eyes shining. "You okay?" she asked. "Always am, when you're around," Charlie replied, a rare smirk playing on his lips. Rex let out a happy bark, nudging them both. The case was closed, but the story of Hudson, Rex, and Sarah was only just beginning its next, more complicated chapter. Chapter 4. The Gilded Cage. The salt air at the St. John's Marina was usually invigorating, but today it carried the metallic tang of blood. The yacht, ironically named Best Kind, swayed gently against the dock, a floating palace of mahogany and chrome that had become a crime scene. Jacob Kaufman, a titan of venture capital with a reputation for ruthlessness, was dead. He hadn't just been killed. He had been pinned to his cabin wall by a heavy-duty spear gun, like a macabre specimen in a collector's display. He was shot from a distance of about 10 feet, Sarah observed, her voice echoing in the confined space of the luxury cabin. She was dressed in her field gear, her brow furrowed as she examined the angle of the spear. The shooter would have had to be between 5'4" and 5'10". "It's a clean shot, Charlie." Efficient. Charlie stood by the cabin door, Rex sitting alertly at his side. The dog's nose was working overtime, cataloging the scents of expensive cigars, French perfume, and the cold, briny water that had somehow found its way onto the carpet. "The crew says Kaufman was difficult," Charlie said, his eyes scanning the room, arrogant, demeaning to everyone, from his wife to the deckhands. "A man like that makes enemies as easily as he makes millions." Andrea Kaufman, the victim's wife, sat on a white leather sofa on the deck, her eyes dry and her expression unreadable. She spoke of their marriage in terms of arrangements rather than love, but it was the missing watch that caught Sarah's attention. "He always wore it," Andrea told them, her voice trembling slightly for the first time. "A gold 1,966 Canary diving watch. Well, a reproduction. The real ones are worth a fortune, but Jacob held on to the fake for sentimental reasons." "It's gone." Rex let out a low whine and nudged a small wooden box on the bedside table. Charlie opened it. mahogany with a deerskin liner.